My name is Arnold Kauffman, and I'm 66 years young, and right now what we're going to do is for the next 30, 40 minutes is draw my life history. To me, I led a very exciting life, but then again to everybody they led a very exciting life. And my story is one of 300 million stories out there, and what we're doing is we're going to draw it. And we encourage you to draw your life story because it puts like a different twist in it, what's important, what's not important, how you became who you are today. Keep in mind, there's little changes along the way, your life could have been totally different. My background is, well, let me tell you when I was born. I was born May 12, 1947. I was born in Philadelphia. But I could have been born in Russia. I could have been born anywhere. I could have been born in Israel. I could have been born in Poland. But in this case, I was born in Philadelphia. My father, who I barely knew, which means I met him maybe a total of 5 times in my life, was born in Russia, as was my mother was, which is kind of interesting, which means I'm first generation American. A little bit my father, because I found it very interesting. Even though I did not know him, I know where he came from, I know what he did, I know where what he accomplished. My father, at age 9 years old, did not have a mother, did not have a father. And he lived in the sewers of Russia, which means he was very poor, had no clothes on his back. I don't think he could have shoes, I don't know, very shoes. But I think he kind of looked like a scavenger, almost like a Huck Finn type. If I remember, like Huck Finn, these young boys, they used to go in packs and they used to scavenge food. Well, my father was of that nature. At age 9 years old, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm sure some cousins will correct me if I'm wrong, he was found by his cousin in the sewers, and they brought him to America. They brought him to America, the land of the free, home of the brave. There was a big Statue of Liberty out there. His life was set. I don't know what it means, but he was never go back to where he came from. He had a new chance to be all he wanted to be. Now, my mother was the same thing. My mother had a family. I think she had 2 sisters, maybe 3 sisters and 1 brother. At the age of, at a certain age, well, let's begin. Her father moved from Russia to the United States by himself and left his wife and 4 kids behind. He did not want to live in Russia because at that time they used to have something called programs against the Jewish people, and they used to beat them up anytime they want, and they were like essentially lived in fear of the Russian people, the Tsars, whatever. They lived in total fear. Anyway, my father saved enough money in Russia, came to the United States, and began saving money so he could bring his wife and 4 kids back to the United States. That was his goal. I believe he worked in, I'm not sure where he worked at, but he wasn't a scholar. He was just a plain, poor worker who saved his money, sent all his money to his family, and his wife and 3 kids. The oldest kid decided to stay. He decided to stay in Russia. 3 kids came over to the United States, and my mother was one of them. They came over by boat. In 1915, my uncle and another sister. The other sister died, leaving my mother and uncle, and they were quite happy. I don't know about happy, but they were living the American life. My first recollection of life came when I was 6 months old in my mother's womb. That's a true story. And I discovered that when I was like 52, 53 years old. I did something called One Brain, and we kept on going back and forth, and to find out what was my first collection. Because part of who I am, I just want to be out there. And we discovered it started when I was 6 months in my mother's womb. I can see it to this day. My mother was lying in bed. She was pregnant with me. I don't know whether she was crying or not. In walked my father into the room and began yelling at my mother. I don't know what he was saying, but I said, I do not like you yelling at my mother. Please leave her alone. I kept on saying, please leave her alone. My father kept on yelling at my mother. I said, I can't stand it. Leave her alone. To this day, he didn't hear me, number one. I don't know why, but he did not hear me. And I don't think he never hit my mother, but I think he left the room kind of disgusted, angry at my mother. My mother began crying. And to this day, I have that mantra, I want to be heard. And I live with this mantra pretty much on a daily basis, even today, when I'm doing, actually I'm doing this right now. Okay. My mother was my father's second wife. They were married 6 years. I'm not sure it was a happy marriage, but my father previously was married. He had two daughters, Ruth and Harriet, and who I later became friends with almost like 13, 15 years later. Because my mother did not have any skills, she graduated, I don't think she graduated high school. I don't think she just had the mentality of a poor peasant woman, although her being gave me the essence of who I am today. For her, she never had a bad day in this life and never complained once, ever once. I never hear her complaining once, and everything was always beautiful. And I'm very happy that I have that same mantra. It's very hard for me to have a bad day, almost impossible for me to have a bad day. I look at life as my gift. The universe, it provides me with everything I need: sun, grass, earth, life. I don't really ask for anything more. Anyway, when I was 3 years old, they got divorced, and my mother, who did not have any work skills, moved in with my uncle. So now I'm living with my uncle, my mother, and my mother had this thing about not wanting to change things in her life. She didn't want to change, ever. So we lived in the Philadelphia area, which at that time was, it wasn't ghetto, but it was like a low blue-collar workers, and in time that became ghetto. But because my mother never wanted to change things ever, in fact, I think I remember we had a TV. I'm not sure what kind of TV it was, but we did have a TV, and we had it on channel 3 forever. She did not want to change the TV forever because I was afraid it may break. But luckily for me, I knew how to change the channels. At age, so we lived in this neighborhood, I would say, from about 3 to 18 years old we lived in it. We lived 15 years. I guess I was about maybe 9 or 10 to get the neighborhood changed to ghetto. I was essentially the only white boy in an all-black neighborhood for about 7, 8 years. No one really bothered me because, number one, I was really small. I mean, I was really, really small. I was really thin. And I was just being myself. I mean, I was funny because at that point either I had to be funny or run fast. I ran fast and I was funny. And I also played with baseball cards. Those are my friends. I didn't depend on other people to play with. At age 5, my mother, what my mother did. My mother worked in a bakery. She used to bring home cakes, cookies, pies every single day. I mean, these great big strawberry shortcakes. I mean, any pastry that you can imagine, she brought home. And at first I liked it. But then after a while, I got tired of it. I did not want any pastry. My mother worked pretty late hours. I guess she left in the morning. I got home like 7:38, which is kind of surprising because she got home 7:38 and she had to go to work. And we lived in a ghetto. And she used to walk from the ghetto area to our house, which was ghetto, at nighttime by herself. And the funny thing is, no one ever bothered her. She used to walk in the ghetto by herself late at night, and no one ever bothered her. And for that part, no one ever bothered me, no one ever bothered her house. I don't know why, but no one ever did. Because she worked so late, I was also dependent on myself to make my own food, which is kind of funny, because I used to make the same thing every single day. I mean, she never changed the TV channel, and I never changed what I ate. I used to have minute steaks every single day with onions and mushrooms, and then for a snack, I used to go over to the corner store to have vanilla fudge ice cream every single day. I was a meat eater and dairy eater. The two no-nos today, which I would totally abscond from even thinking about someone eating every day, because they would get cancer if they eat it every single day. The funny thing is, I mean, we'll get to it later, I did develop something, but we'll talk about it later because that happened when I was, I think, like 16 or 17. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, age 15 years old, I received a phone call from this man who was called my dad. My dad, who I didn't realize I had a dad because my mother never talked about him ever since I can remember, suddenly appeared in my life. It means from 3 to 15, I lived with my mother and my uncle, but I never knew I had a dad. I never asked questions about dad because I just assumed she was never married, or I just didn't assume anything. The way we were raised, we were not taught to ask questions. We would accept everything that was, leave it alone, and just shut up and don't ask questions. I never asked one question where my father is. Never, once, not once, which is kind of strange or kind of normal. Of course, in the ghetto area, very few people had parents. The man wasn't around, or the man just wasn't there. And anyway, age 15, I got this phone call. It says, I am your dad, and I'll pick you up. So he picked me up in his brand new yellow gold Cadillac. Here I am, a kid in the ghetto, with no clothes, with not clothes, but I never had a new pair of pants in my life. Age 15, I never had a new pair of pants in my life. I never had a brand new shirt. I used to wear hand-me-downs from my cousin Archie. Archie was maybe 2-3 years younger than I was, and I used to wear all his hand-me-downs. So he picked me up. His Cadillac, took me to his house. I'm not sure. Well, there wasn't any real connection. He just said, I'm your dad. This is what I do. I have a Cadillac. I own a bar. And I send your mother $75 a month. And my mother had to live off $75 a month, which comes out to $18 a week, and raised me. Needless to say, we were very poor. And but the thing is, it didn't really bother me. I mean, it didn't bother me in the sense that I had a good outlook in life. The other side of it is, I also knew that because of my childhood, because of the poverty, because of constantly living in my neighborhood without having any friends, because of my schoolwork was actually really bad, because of not ever going anywhere, because of not having buying clothes, I will never, ever, ever, ever complain about life again, ever. And to this day, I pretty much kept my word. I don't ever complain. None of the other side is much worse. I also want to be the light for others, to show that life is what you make of it. Anyway, he picked me his yellow Cadillac. I spoke to him like two or three times. We got together afterwards, and then we never saw each other again, ever. Well, we did see each other again, but that's another story. We saw each other maybe 10 years later. My uncle Sidney was my main father figure. His idea of a good time was taking me out to see his friends on Marshall Street. That was his idea of a good time. I mean, we never played ball. I never went anywhere. Nor am I complaining. This is what it was. I had plenty to keep me busy. My life was so full of things to do in my house, it was beyond. Beyond. I mean, even though I had some friends, but I had to walk 3 or 4 blocks to my closest friend. At nighttime, what I would do is I would sit home and play with my baseball cards. My baseball cards were my essential. They were all my friends. I had maybe 300 to 500 baseball cards. Ted Williams, Yogi Berra, Mickey Mantle, Stan Musial, Ted Williams. These baseball cards were my friends, and I memorized everything about them. Every little fact about them, what they did, where they played, how old they were, what their batting average was, how many home runs they had. I memorized everything, and that was my saving grace. Of course, the kids in the ghetto who played baseball would always ask me questions about baseball, and I always knew the answer. So maybe for that reason, no one really ever bothered me. I'm not sure. But age, I guess right before my father met me, my sister got in contact with me, Ruth and Harriet. I haven't seen them I never saw them. And they started contacting me, and what they did is I began going over her house, and all of a sudden I realized I had another family which I never knew existed. I had, my sister had 4 kids. She had Marilyn, Joyce, Rich, and Greg, and I began going to their house and hanging out. I guess about, when I was in, this is another period of my life, I was also pretty smart. Well, not smart, but I had a very high IQ. And I was able to get into a local school called Masterman, which at that time was the elite school for the kids and I decided to go there. I actually did fairly well there. I went there for 3 years. Academically, I did well. Physical, I did well because I was on I wasn't on any teams, but I was able to be in the intramural sports. Age 15 years old, I entered high school. My choice of high school, I had 3 choices of high school. Number 1, Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison was a total ghetto school. It was mostly Puerto Rican and black, and some white. I had a chance of going to Franklin, which was all black. And for whatever reason, I was also, because of my IQ, not because of my grades, I was asked if I could go to Central. Central was one of the top schools at that time in the country. It was ranked number 2 in the country. It was mostly Jewish kids. Not saying they're smart, but it's mostly Jewish, and who were very gun-ho as far as studying. And they used to study like crazy. And myself personally, I entered the school. I thought I would do well, but I was in for a rude awakening. Rude awakening means I had to study a lot. Well, and I just could not get myself to study. Couldn't do it. I used to come home, study, play with baseball cards. Study, go outside and walk 5 blocks to my closest friend's house. I decided not to study, which I definitely had reparations for that, meaning that every year, for the 3 years I was in summer school, except for last year, I went to summer school for 3 subjects. Every year I barely passed, and every year I was in summer school. There's only like 2 out of 3 kids like me, and I was able to squeak by Central barely, but I did squeak by. During my second year at Central High School, what happened was I discovered tumors on my both breastbones. I went to the doctors. He thought a tumor on one breastbone. He thought a tumor on the other breastbone. He said to my mother, "Man, your son has tumors on both breastbones. We need to operate now." Freaked my mother out. I don't know whether I freaked out or not, but looking back to this day, if I eat steak and ice cream every single day, I can now see why I have tumors on both breastbones. I did not know what to do, but the doctor said, "We will take care of you. You will be fine." So once again, I put at that time, whatever someone said, I listened to. I would never question anything. And believe it or not, to this day, it still holds true for the most part. What I see in today's lifestyle, you listen to the doctor. He says you need an operation, you get an operation. So when he told my mother I need an operation, she freaked out. She says, "Do whatever you have to do to save him." The tumor was made about maybe a half inch on both breastbones. I got it removed. It put me out of school activity, I would say, for at least 4 to 6 months. At that time, I was only one of the few kids in the school who had something diagnosed on that level, and I could not function, I would say, for about 3, 4, 5 months. And I used to tell everybody, a couple people listened to me, a couple people didn't listen to me, but that's the way it is. At age 18 years old, I graduated high school. Because of my poor grades, I decided to go for college. I wanted to go to college, but I had really poor grades. I said, well, let's see what happens. What I did is I applied for 5 colleges. 5 colleges. I said, if I make these colleges, I'll go to college. If I don't go to these colleges, I won't go to college. At the same time, it was during the Vietnam War, and you had to sign up. Once you're 18, you had to sign up. I graduated at 17 from high school, and I decided to apply for colleges. All 5 colleges turned me down. I could see why. I just wasn't ready to go to college. It just wasn't my style. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I thought I wanted to be a teacher, phys ed teacher. But I thought all the other kids in school would laugh at me because I wanted to be a phys ed teacher. So I said elementary ed. Anyway, all 5 colleges turned me down. I did not go. And to this day, I'm very grateful. In fact, I'm grateful for everything that happens in my life. Age 17 years old, I graduated high school. And I began my first job at Acme. I had my first money coming in. I never had money come in. I had money coming in. I was very happy. I was able now, somewhat independent. I enjoyed life. I didn't get a car, but I used to travel an hour from my house to work, back and forth, back and forth. At age 18, I also realized that I no longer had to live in the slums. That was a big one. I was beginning to realize that I had enough money to move out of my house. I hated my house. I hated my neighborhood. I hated everything. I mean, I hate it's the wrong word, but I just did not want to be in the ghetto area, afraid to walk the streets, afraid to walk out. I just did not want to be in that situation. At the same time, the draft was coming. I got my second draft notice. As soon as I got my second draft notice, I said, I am signing up right now for the Navy. Now, my parents did not want me to sign up saying that I can get out, saying I was a lonely child. I said, I'm not doing that. I want to serve my country. At that time, I was mother and apple pie. Whatever my country wanted, I did. I said, I will die for my country. And that's what I did. I signed up for it. I didn't want to go in the Army, because the Army, I felt, just did not resonate with me. The Navy did, because that's where I felt I can go places. So at age 18 years old, I signed up for the Navy, and it was a six-year contract. 2 years of inactive reserve, in case they needed me for those 2 years. 2 years of active reserve, 2 years of Navy duty. So the first, I guess, month or so, I was in the reserve, and then they called me for a basic training. The Navy basic training. It was for 90 days. Oh my gosh. 90 days, to me, it was pure horror. The worst day, the 90 days, was the day, I guess like a third day was my worst day of all the time in the service. And that was, believe it or not, you had to brush your teeth for an hour with this worst tasting thing in your mouth ever. And they watch you to make sure you stayed in your mouth ever. I said, oh my gosh, I can't be here. I felt like I was going to die. Anyway, that was my worst day in the Navy. I made it. I also made it through boot camp. It was a little difficult because in boot camp, you're taught to not question anything. And when they say jump, you don't say why, you say how high. Everything was based on listen to the upper command, and you had no choice in that. You would just follow whatever they said, you just did it. Our outfit was called Greens Marines, and we walked and talk tough. I mean, you had to take a 30-inch stride, you take a 29-inch stride. The guy called Green would come up to you and start beating you up. I mean, the guy was a little harsh, but we had another guy called Carlos Silvera. I think his name was Carlos. Hi, Carlos. You saved me. Anyway, he tried to lessen the strictness of Green on us, and apparently it kind of got us through. After basic training, I went back to becoming a mailman. I was a mailman for like another 3, 4, 5 months. I'm not quite sure how long. And then I worked on the second floor. Second floor, I used to go every day. During this time, believe it or not, during this time of going to the post office, I began making money. I told my parents, I'm moving with you or without you. And they said, we will move with you. And so they did move. They did rent a house in Logan. And what happened was, they rent a house in Logan. You would think there's my uncle, my mother, and me. You would think they'd look for a 3-bedroom house. They said they found a 2-bedroom house, which I had to share the bedroom with my uncle, who I did not want to be in that bedroom. In Philadelphia, when I was in the slum area, I didn't get my own bedroom until I was, I guess, 15, 16 years old. So, my own bedroom, about 16 years old, and I says, I can't be here anymore to get my own bedroom. Before, up in that time, up to 15 years old, I shared a bed with my mother. So it gives you kind of background who I am, a very quiet, shy, insecure guy who overcame all this to live a life of luxury and fulfillment and passion, because that's who I am. I guess after basic training, after working at the post office, they called me in to work in the post office, the Navy post office. What happened was they sent me to postal training school, which was a 5-week course. I think later actually came maybe a 2-month course, maybe 3 months course. I'm not quite sure. But during my post office training, for whatever reason, I got in trouble maybe a 3rd week or 4th week. I'm not sure what happened, but I did get in trouble. And because I got in trouble, They told me, Arnold, you have to stay in the barracks to the end of your duty because you are not allowed outside this boot camp. You would think I'd be sad, but what happened was one of the best things that happened in my life. What happened was I had enough understanding that to make use of this time and to study really, really hard to become the best postal office man I could. And I study, and I finished number one in my class. At that time, if you finish number one in your class, you get to choose anywhere you want to go in all of the world. And guess what I chose? I chose Japan. I want to be in Japan for the rest of my tour, and they did it. I became Japan. I would say about 1 year before I was supposed to leave Japan. I was there for like 18, 19 months. I felt bad. I felt bad because all this was during the Vietnam War, and here I was in Japan having a good time, loving my life, did not see any action. I said, man, I got to be where the action is. I want to go fight for my country. What I'm going to do is I'm going to volunteer in Vietnam. I want to go there, and if I'm going to die, I'm going to die doing what I want to do, not what someone else wants me to do. So I put in a request to be stationed in Vietnam, and everybody around me really laughed. They said, Arnold, you are crazy. You have a good hair. Why would you want to do that? I said, well, I want to do right for my country. I believe it's up to my duty to fight for my country. At that point, my closest friend, one of my closest friends, Joe Patrone. Hi, Joe, if you see this, say hi. He said, Arnold, you're crazy. You shouldn't do it. Why would you do it? You have everything going for you in the world. You're going to come back alive. You go to Vietnam. You don't know whether you're going to come back alive today. Anyway, they turned down my request for Vietnam. They took Joe Patrone instead, and this is how the story is. What happened was they said in order for you to, once you volunteer in Vietnam, you have to have 1 year left of service. You do not have a year left of service, and we can't take it. What happened was then, I guess in December, in 1970, what I did is I had enough time of service, and they gave me an honorable discharge. I was thinking about joining up for more, but I decided just let whatever happens, happens. I returned to the post office. He said this is going to be my life's work for the next, I was maybe 20 at the time. I'm going to work here for the next 45 years in the post office, retire, then do whatever. Because I said to myself, I'm going to give myself 45 years of working for somebody else, to make enough money, and not follow my passion, but just make enough money. At that time, and to this day, I'm still happy wherever I'm doing. I really enjoy the post office. I did not have a car. First thing I did is I get a car. Second thing I did was I decided to move. But before I moved, I wasn't going to college. And I went over to my sister's house. My sister said to me, Arnold, no one in the Kauffman family is ever going to college. You have the intelligence to go to college. Why didn't you go to college? And I said, well, I got turned down when I was in high school. I'm going to see if I can go to college right now. So what I did is I took up 2 classes. I think I took up history and something else at Temple University. I said to myself, if I pass these 2 classes, it'll be a test. I will then go to college. What happened was then, I took the 2 subjects. I studied. And what happened was, I passed 2 courses. I then decided, listen, I am going to go to college. I'm going to go to community college. So I began going to community college. And every day I would go to community college. I was probably one of the oldest guys there. I was 25 years old, 22, 23 when I entered. And I was probably one of the oldest people there. They were like mostly 17, 18, 19 years old. And I began studying. And I did not feel like studying at home. What I would do is I would study at Temple University. So I went to Temple every single day and studied. I sat on his table in the library. And one day this guy walked right by me, kept on walking by me every single day. He had a strut. He had like a real ghetto strut. He says, Arnold, why don't you be my roommate? I said, what the heck? Excellent, because I didn't want to live at home. I said, listen, let's do it. The guy was ghetto. He was actually a cat burglar who got caught stealing, and he wound up in jail at age 18 or 19 years old. At age 18 or 19 years old, he wound up in jail, and what happened was he didn't want to be in jail, so he wrote to every single lawyer out there to see if they could help him. He wrote to every single rich Jewish person, because he was Jewish, every single rich Jewish person to see if they can help him. Why he was in jail? Believe it or not, two people did help him. A lawyer helped him get out of jail, and this other woman who became his financier helped him give him enough money to pay the lawyer to get him out of jail. The lady was very, very wealthy, and even though I never met her, this story in turn helped me out a lot. Because I finished college, I finished community college. At the same time, I applied for Temple again, seeing if I can go from community college to Temple. But because my grades were so poor in high school, because my grades in community college were so-so, they were okay, I failed Temple for the second time. I failed Temple for the second time. And at that point, what I did was use my friend's influence to get me back into Temple University. And so I did. And began Temple University. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I decided to go for education. During my stay at Temple University, I met a girl called Rosetta. Rosetta was my first sweetheart. We had a romance of 3 months. Then I was my first introduction woman. On New Year's Eve, she left me, which is the way it is. During Temple, what I decided to do, my third year at Temple, I was taking education, and what I did, I decided to take life by the horns and see what the rest of the United States was about. I decided to hitchhike all across the country, and that's exactly what I did. I took out my thumb, and I started, I drove to, I hitchhiked several times. I hitchhiked to Florida once or twice. I hitchhiked to California. I hitchhiked all through Canada. I just hitchhiked all over the country. A lot of times when you hitchhike, all of a sudden you realize there's nothing to do or waiting for a ride. Sometimes, especially in Canada, it would take maybe 15, 20, 25 hours just to be picked up by a car. And what happened was, during this time, I began reading. I began reading an author called Leon Uris, who wrote a book called Exodus. And after reading Exodus, I became enamored with the country of Israel. I became enamored with my roots. I decided I am going to go to Israel no matter what. That's where I want to live for the rest of my life. So I guess I was supposed to graduate. I did graduate in 1972. In 1972, I decided if I'm going to go to Israel, I need to study Hebrew. My last class at Temple University was a Hebrew class. It was like a bonus class, so I already got enough credits to graduate. The first day of Hebrew class, the very first day, after class, this young girl was waiting for me. She asked me, Arnold, do you want to go for a cup of chocolate milk? I said to myself, okay. I also remember the year before, same thing happened. A girl asked me at the end of class, do I want to go for chocolate milk? We wound up having a 3-month romance. And after Sally, who later became my wife, said that, I said to myself, oh no, here we go again. And again, we did have a romantic relationship. And I was supposed to go to